Modicon.
um, is a gaming and simulation lab that together at Case. About a year ago, maybe a little more, the chair, Miran Maragani, had the idea in the, and I just thought at the time was to have a place where students can go and they can play Xboxes, PS2s, and really relax and just kind of chill out in the department. And that was yeah. And but when I talked about it, I said I wanted to take it because my interest was largely in the simulation area, and a game, yes, a little bit on my part, but not certainly an avid gamer. And if I was heading to anything, really heading off to the right side over there and playing Microsoft Flight Simulator. I used to be a pilot and had a lot of flying hours in, so it was the more realistic simulations, the race that, if anything, that I would gravitate toward. And when he mentioned the idea, I said I wanted to run with it, but I really wanted to make it a larger facility that we could really integrate into the curriculum and excite students not only about playing games, but about developing them and using them as tools in the classroom. So that's the background. And then from that point, we found that within the university there was a source of funds through the provost office, president's office / provost office, and put a proposal together. I thought fairly modest, and then the engineering dean's office said, "Bump it up. Let's go for the big stuff." And the provost office funded the lab to the tune of $375,000, which is not large compared to the multi-million-dollar. Yeah, it's a lot of Xboxes. And if you really start putting together things and just go for hardware and software, there's a lot that you can buy. As you'll see how we're putting this thing together as we're moving along. So we got the money pretty much at the end of last year, the allocation, and then it's taken a while to get to the point where we're ready to roll this thing out. And in fact, we're at the point where we met with the architects and the engineers this past week and finalized the plans for the laboratory, and we'll see what that looks like in just a sec. And then we're going out for the physical construction of the laboratory, maybe another week or so. I think the only thing that remains is where one faceplate has to be, and Froggy needs to determine. so when he's back after recovering from the conference, he'll determine where that needs to go, and we'll be ready to roll at that point. Construction will be starting right after graduation at Case, which is pretty much mid-May. Final completion of construction early July, and then stocking the lab with everything for the rest of the summer. So fall of this coming year, we're ready to roll. Now, the motivation behind it, there's really several points that I think are important. First of all is gaming and the pervasiveness of gaming. People have generally been quoting numbers on the order of $10 billion per year, although every time I read something, it gets bumped up. So I certainly have heard $12 billion, $15 billion a year, and I think even at that, it's conservative for what the possibilities are going into the future, even a few years. And going further down the line, if we kind of open up our thoughts in terms of gaming, it can be even incredibly larger. So there's a market for games themselves, obviously, that's huge, and that's gaming alone. Simulation, I'm not even sure how to put price tag on what the simulation industry is. And the way I look at it, it kind of blends from high fidelity, serious simulation, all the way through to kind of almost game-like simulation, through to gaming. And even at that, if you look at some of the games today, and look at the modeling that's going on in some of the, particularly maybe the racing games and the flight simulators, things like that, that's serious modeling that's going on in there, very sophisticated. So there is a spectrum. The size of the simulation industry, I can't begin to guess. That's true. That's true. Or the simulations for that matter. It was interesting when I started my career. I was involved in simulation, and it was simulation of defense systems, if you will. And there was one simulation that was talked about. It was a simulation of a bomb blast. Let's put it that way. And the time to run the simulation was so large that a single run was larger than the amount of time to fail, the average time to fail for one of the computers that in the simulation. And we've come a long way, I think, since then. But simulations have enormous impact and scope and range, and where they're being used goes all the way from places that we'll never find out about to the home or on cell phones as well. And one of the key things, I guess, behind all this, and certainly our chair's initial motivation, is that playing games is fun, but not only playing games. But certainly when you're developing games and involved with games, testing games, creating games, that is a very exciting, very fun thing to do. It can be a lot of work, certainly without any doubt, but it can be very enjoyable. The games themselves incorporate, and Kristen will have a lot more to say about this later on, incorporate a tremendous range of skills that one needs to deal with games. Going in a very gross way from looking at art and music, sound, programming, artificial intelligence, and physics. It's incredible that the number of things that may come into play into games, which makes it a wonderful educational tool. And it's not only the number of things that come in, it's how these things stress the software and the hardware that really make it quite compelling for students to be learning what's going on at the cutting edge. And finally, the last motivation was to, because of this scope in gaming, the hope was that we would be able to bring together a lot of the campus. And that has certainly happened. We have partners in this activity, some of which are very closely tied in, and some others that are more distant. But we have these ties that are beginning on campus. Certainly, the facility itself will be in the EECS department. The first course that Christian will describe a little bit later on directly involves the English department and English majors, the music department and music majors, and the Cleveland Institute of Art, with a good number of art majors as well. The School of Medicine, Nursing, and Dentistry are involved in a peripheral sense. We're involved with their simulation facilities. They're involved with ours. And probably School of Medicine is almost not so peripherally involved, as we'll see in just a moment. The idea of the laboratory, then, is to enable students and enable faculty to learn in a very strongly experiential way, not sitting in the classroom listening to a lecture, but down in the facility that we have, the software and the hardware, to create games and not learn about artificial intelligence in an abstract way, but to apply it to an enemy non-player in a game. There's a lot of our courses that are exciting because the professor is exciting. There are a lot of our courses, and you could probably name the faculty and the courses that are not exciting. In fact, that really go on to the word boring, I think, or dull, has come up a number of times in discussing some of them. Right, right, and keep it clean. So we want to push to bring gaming into a lot of these courses to really re-energize them. We've developed 3 new courses, 2 of which we're offering next year, 1 the following year. Christian will be talking about that are oriented toward gaming. And finally, while we don't want to have a gaming degree, full sail, DigiPen, we don't want to have a degree like some other schools may have. We want to have computer engineering, computer science, systems, EE as our main cornerstone degree. We also would like to have or enable students to have a concentration in these areas. So this is what we came up with. And for the actual physical construction, the kind of coming in, walking along here, and I wish I had a virtual tour at this point, but I don't. It would fit in very well, but I don't have it. Walking in over here, we have a glass entrance, and a little side over here, we're going to have a couple of 24-inch LCD monitors, just to kind of give a good high-tech feeling to the lab itself. The conference room can be used, but let's not really think about that in the lab. We have a virtual reality room that sits over here. I'll talk about some of this stuff in each one of the rooms as we go along. We have an audio room that, again, I'll talk about. An immersion room, a single station immersion room here. We have a console, and these are all be closed off. We have a console room over here with 4 stations. And each station, you really shouldn't think about it as a single person. We'll probably have a couple of chairs, if you will. The idea of love seats was thrown out early on. But a couple of chairs in each position over here. So 4 of those, keep that in mind. And over here we have 18 PCs, and here our PC room, and then a small medical simulation room over here. Right now, this is Froggy's office. I don't know whether that's going to stay. I have a feeling he's going to be in this audio room an awful lot of the time. Yeah, that also. There's going to be a lot of fighting for this place, and I don't know who's going to win. The laboratory is set up, and it was funded to be an undergraduate laboratory, specifically. So most of the use will be undergraduates. There will be research projects. My hope is those research projects will help and give tools to undergraduates. Yeah, I know. 24-hour access, and food, particularly drink allowed. This is not a picture of the lab. The lab obviously would be in construction, but this is as close as I can find to what we hope that it's going to look like. And people working independently, people are clearly working together. So our PC room, the PCs will be as hot as we can get them, literally. Probably Dell XPS gaming systems, 24-inch LCD monitors on each, and the hottest graphics cards that we can get, short of being externally water-cooled, I think, is really what we're aiming for. And as we move ahead, certainly that will be the one area that will require, I think, the most funds in keeping up to date. So we have 18 PCs in that room. Yes, the air conditioner actually kind of kicked me in the rear in the sense that we have air conditioning now, but we need to boost it up. And that air conditioning unit alone will probably run in the order of about $40,000. So it's a 5-ton unit. They wanted to put it up on the top of the ceiling tiles, and I said no. This is going up on the roof. I don't want to have to deal with it for 2 reasons. One, the sound, and the second reason is last time that we did that, it was leaking in the room, in the 131 room, and actually started a fire, electrical fire. So I want it far away. So that cost a lot of money, which did my $375,000, by the way. That comes out of the general. Actually, we're looking to name the lab, so we're looking at sponsors. But we'll get that. The